Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here one more time, StringTech Workstations, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We are doing a neck reset on this beautiful Koa Dreadnought for Paul. It's 1980. And I thought I would bring you in at this point to kind of show you what I've got. I have gone through all of the geometry to get everything right and everything lined up, and I am gluing the shims in. And I thought I would show you this as I take it apart. Sometimes it's better to explain it as you see me disassemble. So there's some saran wrap in there. I have press fit that male dovetail into the female dovetail in the block with the appropriate shims, which are a little too thick, and that's what you want. I'm going to work them down to the right size for a perfect fit. So let's have a look at this. Alright, so I'll take a minute here and explain this relief cut that I made on the top of the dovetail. I'm giving you this view so that you can see the square tubing that runs underneath the fingerboard, and this is a neck reinforcement. It's sort of like a truss rod, it's just not adjustable. So by making this cut and the deepening of the 14th and 15th fret slots, that gives us this flexibility for the fingerboard extension to flex down tight to the soundboard. This is the stealth approach where there's no wedge put on here. The original rosewood is glued to the original Koa, in this case Koa soundboard. And once it's all done, well, you'll have a good look. We will have restored all of the structural integrity without putting undue stress on the soundboard underneath the fingerboard extension by putting a wedge in there. The other thing I'll do before the neck is glued on is I will fill those holes that we use for the steamer. I'll fill those up with rosewood dust. We'll make this job completely undetectable when it's done. And so this is one of those very rare occasions where I use a vise, and it's justified in this case. Hockey puck, surprised? So that holds everything firmly while I make that cut. Now we're ready to fill those holes with rosewood dust, scrape them smooth, and get the neck back on the guitar and get the frets in. So I'm gathering up some rosewood dust to fill those holes up. So I have explained this in other Martin neck reset videos that I posted in the past. I'm going to kind of give a little bit more theory this time about how I'm doing this, why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So first of all, as far as the geometry goes, what we're doing is we're setting the neck back slightly this way so that we have enough adjustment at the bridge saddle to be able to put the action wherever Paul wants it. So the 6 different planes that you have to be aware of when you pull the dovetail and then you go to reset, it has to be right this way and this way. They're the first 2 planes. It has to be right this way and this way. And then lastly, it's got to be right this way and this way. So all those angles have been verified. The neck is 100%. I'm happy with the trajectory of the fingerboard surface to the bridge. The other thing that I've mentioned in other videos, and I've done it here again, is the 3rd fret and the 11th fret are my pilot frets. So when I slip that straight edge up to the bridge, what that tells us is there'll be lots of room. After 43 years of string pull, the neck had pulled up, and the action at the saddle when Paul dropped the guitar off was basically too high to play. And even if you had the brute force to play with action that high, it doesn't do you any good because the guitar would never be in tune. So now when I slip that straight edge up and I hop up onto that saddle, we have a very good action level, and the new saddle will probably end up being slightly higher than this. So what that means in the long run is for the next 43 years, this guitar will remain fully adjustable. The approach that I take with the fingerboard extension, I deepen these two fret slots that allow the fingerboard extension to flex down tight to the top. I do not put a wedge under there. I try to take more of a stealth approach. I have a piece of rubber up against the head brace on the inside and this rubber on the fingerboard to pull this fingerboard extension down tight. But when I'm done and you look at this repair, we've covered our tracks. Number one is no one would ever know that the neck was off this guitar. The second reason I like to do this is when you put a wedge underneath this fingerboard extension, you're lifting the top surface of the fingerboard higher off of the soundboard. And this puts more downward pressure on the soundboard at this point, which can often lead to the top kind of caving in a bit around the sound hole. But by setting the neck back and then making the correction on the trajectory of the fingerboard surface to the bridge by sanding from the second last fret here right up to about the 5th fret, then we change that trajectory without putting any extra load on the soundboard when it's all done. Let's have a closer look at this. So I started this process after getting the neck set correct. Of course, the fingerboard extension drops off and you end up getting a high spot at the 14th fret where the neck meets the body. I started with a small scrub block. Now this 11th fret, I've taken that out and put it back in a few times over the course of verifying the proper angle. So I started with a scrub block, I took out the highest spot, and then with a slightly larger one, I chased it back a little further, and then this was the longest block I used in this case. And you can see on the fingerboard where the sanding marks stop, which is around the 5th fret. That's the 3rd fret. That one stayed in through this whole process. Because you have to remember that this is a non-adjustable neck. It has a square tubing inside to support the neck. You're not able to adjust it. So at the Martin factory, they had already achieved a beautiful relief in this neck. And that's why from the nut to about the 5th fret, I left it alone. It was from the 6th fret right up to this second last fret here that I did all of that work to change that trajectory. Now we're ready to put these frets in, because I like to put the frets in on the fingerboard extension before the neck is glued on so that the body and the top of the guitar never takes a hit with a hammer blow to drive those frets in. So that's my next step. So these are the two holes that we just covered up. That last little bit will be done after the whole fret job is finished. I've got 3 hot cloths in that hot cup of water, and 3 dry cloths, and 6 scoop up sticks. So this is the setup for the clamping configuration. I have a curved caul And that quick grip clamp with the soft rubber pads pulls that call down tight, and that in turn pulls the fingerboard extension tight to the soundboard. Here is our wet cloth, followed up by a dry cloth. Now I do keep my eyes on this for a few minutes because you will end up getting a little bit of extra squeeze. We've got a beautiful fit on this. 100% contact all the way around. Dovetail's good and tight. Neck angle is perfect. But it's still, like I said, want to keep a real close eye on that there. I can see that starting to seep out already. So we'll give it about 3 or 4 minutes. I keep my scoop up sticks handy as we go. So the tongue depressor is like a soft wooden knife. Well, in this case, it's much softer than the Koa, which is the soundboard on this guitar. Allows you to get in right tight to that intersection and scoop up any hint of glue squeeze. All right, we're on the last tuner. I thought I would take a minute, point the camera, and explain what I'm doing. These Spurzel tuners, and I pointed it out to the customer when he dropped it off, are actually great tuning machines, but they've been around for 43 years, and they've never been lubed, and that's what we're about to do right now. This is lithium grease in a 3cc syringe with a 18 gauge needle. Put a little dab of that grease in there. And then a couple of drops of oil. And I kind of work that in. Little mini brush. So I did this on all 6 machines because a couple of them, the A string was jam solid. Just a little bit more oil. So the oil helps to loosen up the lithium grease, which is it's pretty viscous, pretty thick. Put our cuff back on, our nylon washer. And clean up any excess. I had to do this with a few of these. Give it a little extra shot of grease. Now, as I get closer to retirement, I thought this type of thing would be a good thing to share while I'm still making videos. Oh, this video, by the way, is number 700. Okay, let's try that again. And we'll get that back in a vertical position. Now this pickguard was lifting, and I guess somebody had, I don't know what they did, we'll find out when we get it off, but The customer's a bit upset about that. He just wanted a nice clean job. Once you open that can of worms trying to redo something or use some type of weird adhesive, it's pretty easy to quickly kind of make a mess of it all. So this is just a warmed up palette knife. It's really easy to overthink some of these jobs. There we go. So I don't know exactly what that is, epoxy or whatever it is, but I'm going to clean it up and we'll start over. You know, whenever I see this type of thing, I think of that Randy Travis tune that goes, I've heard tell the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Oh man. Okay, I'm going to take a few runs at this. I got to be very careful about cleaning this up. The jury's not in yet whether I'm going to use this pickguard or not. I may end up just swapping it out. Just going at this very gently with a radius disc sander with the foot switch on the drill press. I'm going to take another couple of runs at it and I'll make that decision whether we're going to continue or not. There's still a fair amount of super glue here that's got to come off. So I'm using this to just kind of break the skin of that super glue, and then I'll switch back to the razor blade. So you can see that this can end up being a real can of worms. What seems like a simple and obvious thing, a fairly common issue, pickguards lifting on these vintage Martins. And I'm sure that there's others that have tutorials and videos on this job. Okay, Paul, I just realized what you were upset about. All this super glue smudge marks all over the top. Here's what I've got. It's a wooden block. You don't want to use your finger. You'll just leave a hole in the finish. This is a slip of leather on a wooden block. You guys come up against this. Here's how you're going to take care of it. And I've got some 3M final finish here, moving in a circular motion. So the aim is to get rid of all of that super glue that's... We'll see how we do with this. No guarantees. But yeah, I never saw this until today, Paul. So I kind of spent my morning and some of my afternoon just cleaning this up for you. After gently rubbing this for about 45 minutes, it's come out pretty good. I'm very happy with that. Whew. There's no traces of glue. I got all the glue off. At least I think I got it all off. There's a little bit right here. I got to work on that. Okay, that is miles beyond what it was. And I have made the decision to go with the replacement Pickguard. I got most of that super glue off, but you know, the Pickguard is pretty distorted now. The replacement one will look much better than that. I'm just glad that we got rid of all the super glue goops all over the soundboard. There's still some cleanup that I need to do here. Okay, that's a little more presentable. And that's what we've got, 3M adhesive peel and stick. I always aim for 3 points of contact to get these things lined up properly. And that is about as tight as it's going to get. And that's what we've got. It's pretty close. It's virtually impossible to get 100% because the original pickguard was actually attached to the top before the top was sprayed. That's why it was raw wood under there. But we got it pretty close. Much better than it was. Just one of those jobs that shouldn't have been necessary. A disproportionate amount of time spent on what should be a very small part of this pretty extensive job. So here is one of the trickiest parts of this whole job. When I stick that feeler gauge on there, we have the perfect amount of relief from the 1st fret to the 8th fret. Try that in the middle of the neck. Yep, and the outside. It's exactly what we were after. So we utilized that original relief that Martin had put in when this guitar was made. It was from the second last fret up to about the sixth, where I did most of the sanding. I need to control that trajectory to get the lay of the neck as it is now. So these are EJ19 bluegrass strings, 12 on the top, 56 on the bottom. The perfect match for this guitar. It sounds and plays awesome. And here's a good view of the fingerboard extension to the soundboard joint and the cheeks of the heel as they meet the sides. So by deepening the cut at the 14th and 15th fret, it allowed this fingerboard extension to lie down beautifully. And we're back to covering our tracks again. So at a glance, nobody would ever know the neck was ever off this guitar. Okay, on to the K&K system. This is the ingenious installation package they give you. Very simple, but very effective. So the idea is this is like a little stethoscope that attaches to the underside of the bridge plate. You use this peg to line it up dead center with the first string. So it is only the first string where you line it up dead center. See, the other strings, you split it between the middle two strings, D and G, and then the bass strings A and E. After years of research, they've come up with this formula. One of those details that you want to be aware of, instead of placing this between the first two strings, it's centered dead center on the first string. Essentially what we're doing is we're putting this directly underneath the saddle. You want to make sure that you don't push back too far, because if you think about it, the ball end of the string goes in there and then folds over. You want to make sure that that ball end does not touch the actual pickup. If anything, you're better off erring on the side of caution and maybe bringing it forward a little bit. So we use a thicker paste type of super glue. The indexing pins hold it in place. I gently push it up to the bridge plate, hold it for about a count of 60, and then release. Now the middle transducer is placed directly under the saddle in between the two middle strings, G and D. Again, word of caution, you're better off being a little too far forward just to ensure that those ball ends of the strings don't nip into your little stethoscope. We are getting ready to install the input jack. So I tend to use just like a 1/4 inch dowel, reach in through the tail block and index that dowel into the input jack, 1/4 inch jack, and then gently bring it back. And by the way, this isn't a paid advertisement. I just installed the last 7 out of 10 systems I've done have been K&K, so I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of walk you through this system that is becoming increasingly more popular. Okay, now we have just the right amount of thread protruding. Put that washer on first. And now we put our little trim cuff on. Grab that with a chunk of leather and snug that down tight. That'll do. Always a good idea to jam a little paraffin wax into those threads. Now that Paul has this strap button to use for his strap, he'll never have to worry about that input jack loosening up, because it will never be used for his strap. I did want to point out that I actually sand a little bit of a radius onto this foot of the button so that it fits snugly on that curved surface. Again, we've got a little paraffin wax on there. There's a lot of geometry going on here. The strap button into the heel, you have to make sure that that's sitting good and flush. Just about ready to go in and play this thing. So you have to make sure that you keep in mind that there is a curvature this way, a curvature this way, and that you want to make sure you get just the right angle so that the foot of that strap button plants firmly against the heel. And that will not rotate. So that just goes a long way to get it to sort of seat nice and flush with the curved surface of the heel. And this is for the 12 to 56 strings. I did install some solid ebony bridge pins with the pearl dot little brass ring, just to dress it up a little bit. There are so many different nuances of tone with this Koa Dreadnought. This is straight acoustic guitar. You can hear all those sympathetic overtones just hitting one note. Yeah, once the intonation and calibration is lined up like that, this customer will be hearing this guitar for the first time. So that's straight acoustic. So this is the K and K system plugged straight into the Lab series. Same thing acoustically. And this is plugged in. You know, it's no wonder these K&K systems have become so popular. It's so close to the natural sound of the guitar. There's a straight acoustic. This is probably the simplest calibration test you can do for your guitar. That garden variety C chord form at the 8th fret, making it a G. Same form. Listen to the overtones on this thing. Now a D, and then C. Let's do it again. The straight acoustic. So playing chords across the entire span of the neck is the best test ever. A, this is an A minor 9 to C sharp minor 7 over G sharp to G6 to B minor 7 over F sharp to F major 7 sharp 11 to E, back to A minor, to E 7 sharp 9. So this is the chord progression. A minor 9, C sharp minor 7 over G sharp, G6, to B minor 7 over F sharp, to F major 7 sharp 11, to E, to A minor, to E 7 sharp 9. And just let that play. The other thing that this customer will certainly appreciate is never even thinking about a battery. Man, this is acoustic. It's not plugged in now. Tons of attack. Scads of overtones. Nice crisp bass. Lots of mid-range punch. And with the koa, the top end is The top end is spectacular. There you go, Martin Koa Dreadnought, resurrected. Here's our final shot. This whole job. There's the ebony bridge pins with mother of pearl dots, the cantilevered compensated bone saddle for these 12 to 56 strings at concert pitch. Our new frets, our reset neck, and the cantilevered compensated nut. These are the Spurzell machine heads that I took apart and lubricated and put back together. It's not just that the guitar plays fantastic, sounds fantastic, but it's super stable now that it's been calibrated. And with those Spurzell tuners, Paul will very rarely even reach to tune this guitar.